Well, apparently I'm live on Instagram right now, and I think today's the 8th, isn't it? Let me have a look. I don't know. Ba-ba-bum. Yeah, 8/8/25, 2025. Friday morning. Apparently today's a very significant day for many people who study the stars and study astronomy and astrology. I don't know, they talk about a gate being open. Well, somebody once told me to not take offense, so I didn't. I just took the gate. Bad dad jokes. Maybe the Lion's Gate means something. You know, the power of Leo. We're in Leo, I think, and this strange configuration that this multiverse, universe, world, realm, society, that we live in, maybe it is all governed by something external to our being. Maybe, who knows? I'm entertaining all possibilities, but the one thing I will not do whilst I am in this human experience is I won't struggle too much. And I hope people don't struggle too much with the accumulation of knowledge that is unveiled right now. Everybody knows everything because it's all here. Lies, truth, in-betweens, everything. Deceit. Idiots saying that they can control you. You feeling controlled and struggling. All those things plus the general knowledge that we are careering out of control. Well, isn't that what you really want? I mean, I know it's what I really want. If there's anybody out there that wants anything different but to be free of the control system that this world has put in place, so many rules, so many regulations, so many ways that people control your life and living your life. You see? We're moaning and complaining. What's our new nemesis? We don't have a nemesis. We're humans experiencing life on an abundant planet. That's what we are. Inside us, we can go deep and look at our intelligent hearts and our massive brains, and we can make wonderful cartoons of ourselves. We can make caricatures of ourselves. We can take on so many different personas. We can struggle. We can submit. We can dominate. All of those things we can do. But if we do it without the level of freedom that I personally require, then I'm not going to play that game. I'm not going to struggle. I'm just going to live my life. Live, love, life. There was a bird flying over. I don't like to be controlled. So I've worked through that my whole life. But I also don't want to be in control of anybody else. I've worked through that in my life. My human experience has been wide and varied, as are most people's. Did you hear that? I heard it. That's my stomach saying it's breakfast time. My whole body talks to me whilst I'm in this meat suit, whilst I'm in this human experience that we call life. My body tells me what I want, and I want what I need in order to get through each day. And part of it is food for here, and food for my stomach. I'm not struggling. I think this is Jungian. Yes, it is. I'm not struggling to be a good person. I sometimes struggle to be a whole person. But that's what I want more than anything. I desire being a whole person. WHOLE. I want to be a whole human. I want to embrace my humanity. And I can only do that if I access the one thing that I keep harping on about, which is that which I was born with. That I, and many, forget about sometimes, but we must remember it. It's unconditional love. And you must love yourself in order to love others. And if you don't, then you will struggle. You see? But it's not ego. I don't love myself like, ooh, gosh, he's beautiful. Gosh, he's clever. Oh, no. It's not it's self. It's knowing deep inside you that you were born with and you will die with that great gift of unconditional love. That is your human experience. Now, how you go about operating in this world, that's entirely up to you. I suggest peace and love. I suggest introspection before going outside in the world and telling everybody how clever you are. Isn't that what I'm doing right now? Well, not really. I feel like it's a relay race, you know? I'm one of the runners in a massive relay race of humanity, and I'm just passing the baton. The peace baton. The one that harms nobody but keeps the human race in the race. The baton of peace. Don't like the word baton very much, but there you go. It's just words. Words can be harmful, very harmful. The way we communicate with each other is hugely important. I've been talking to a friend who's very depressed. He has been for a very long time. He has moments within that, but his blissful moments are seemingly getting less, and his depressed moments are huge. And he kind of pontificates about it. He writes things about it, saying everything about this world, about this realm. Well, I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. So to say publicly, especially as Dragonfly just went past, to say publicly that it's all shit, some of it is. But to say it's all shit and everybody should give up, well, not give up. He doesn't say things like that, but he gives the impression that this is not where he wants to be. He doesn't want to be on this abundant planet. He wants to be somewhere else. Well, of course he does. This friend of mine has had a near-death experience that has been well documented. And he's been with his soul. His soul elevated out of his body and went and met and experienced another worldly he had an experience outside of this realm that was so beautiful, and yet he was plonked back in his body. Bump. And when you come back to Earth after experiencing such enormous bliss at meeting what's next for you, and then you look around you, you're like, come on people, you're doing it wrong, see, but he's turned it to a henny penny. The sky is falling. Well, it's not falling. It's always been there. Everything you're experiencing is part of your perception, part of your reality, and part of your perspective on life. So your experience, and this is for my friend mostly, because I don't like to see him struggle like this. Your perspective has been warped by your experience, and you have to warp it back. You have to put your feet on the ground. It's a marvelous, abundant planet, and we shouldn't struggle so much with life. 3 simple things: live, love, life. I mean, I know it's so boring. It's so boring. I mean, gosh, just live, love, life. Oh, well, create drama. You can create drama in your life. It's fine. But don't create it out of trauma. You see, trauma and drama are almost synonymous. They one feeds. One, your trauma feeds your drama. So you have to face the trauma first. That's pretty difficult for most humans. There has been a lot of trauma. I mean, I've been around 69 years and experienced a tremendous amount of trauma. But every time I face it down. I said, get thee behind me. You know, I disconnect from you trauma. And then I can create sort of fun and games and enjoy this abundant planet. Do I get fed more trauma? Yes, of course. But no more than anybody else experiences, really. This life of duality is dependent upon you experiencing trauma of some sort. Maybe it's, you can't afford your next meal. That's terrible trauma. Maybe it's you can't afford to buy the new Versace handbag. That's trauma. Maybe it's your 5th or 6th home that you own that lays vacant most of the year, most of your life. Maybe you can't afford to put in those dodgy tenants. Well, those dodgy tenants are human beings, you see. I have a friend who owns a house near me, and he's not really a friend, he's a person I know. he extorts and controls his tenants with all sorts of mannerisms, but his key mannerism is greed. It's hard to define greed. You know, sometimes I eat too much. That's greedy. I'm talking about extortionate greed and inflicting that greed on others. In other words, knowingly extorting people and distorting people's lives in order to financially gain a foothold over others. That's not power. That's greed. That's sick greed. And we mistake it for power sometimes. I mean, people are listening to people. People are listening to people. Well, they should. But people are following. Whoops. Excuse me. Oh, need to stretch. Oh. People are following people who are deemed successful. And how are they deemed successful? Well, increasingly, I'm seeing people, deemed successful because they make more money. Money is not my God. Brilliant song by a band called Killing Joke. They were a great band, and they had some great songs. Sometimes a bit too crunchy and for me, but most of their songs quite brilliant. There's a dub version of Money Is Not My God, and I think that's a really great song. But I posted this morning on my Facebook page one of my favourite songs that kind of pinpoints what I'm trying to say. Greed kills. End wars. Most wars are for greed. And most wars are started because somebody gets too greedy, like way too greedy. But the song I'm talking about is by a band called Sick Note, who are no longer a band. They all split up, and sadly members have died. But Jason Doghouse Walsh, Jason, my friend in England, wrote a song called Freelance Opportunist. And I think what happened during my lifetime, and it happened in the 80s, 1980s in England. Hi, Si. How you doing, mate? In the 1980s in England, there was a shift towards blatant greed. And that blatant greed came from, not necessarily from the people that were following, themselves. They were following the idea. Now, the idealism that sits itself in the middle of a political control system, the idealism has to be representative of the people that elect you, right? That's what it should be. It's not how it works. It never has worked that way. You always get greedy people in charge, and those greedy people in the 80s decided to take the cap off of capitalism. They decided, well, I'm just a freelance opportunist. In other words, the idea of freelance opportunism is for you to become full of the opportunities that you perceive that you pursue in life. Well, in theory, that sounds very good. But in practice, what happens is it's an insatiable desire for more and more and more. So freelance opportunism is greed. You see, if you take the cap of capitalism, that means that you'll exploit anybody for anything you want. And then the greed grows inside you. It starts off as a seed. The seed turns to greed, and it becomes all-consuming. And now we're in a position, some 45, 50 years later, from the cruel and wicked ideology of people like Alan Greenspan, who was a financial advisor, people like Henry Kissinger, who was a political advisor. These are people that work behind the scenes, not the actual politicians. It's not, I know the politicians follow through on the ideologies that they're convinced are correct. But there is no single political ideology that is correct. It all starts with the lust for power, and it's a lust that is fed, and it's fed, and it's fed, and it's fed, and it becomes greed, and then becomes a monster. And it doesn't matter if it's one end of the political spectrum or the other end of the political spectrum. You know, outright greed and capitalistic dog eat dog, that's not going to work. But nor is absolute control over the rest of the world through communistic means. There's always going to be someone who wants to be on the top of that pyramid scheme that society has become. You know, those schemes that came out in the 60s and 70s, you know, even as a small child, I remember Tupperware storage containers. All of it is there to try and control you into believing that you can make millions and millions and millions and millions of whatever it is you want. But you have to moderate that. You know, if you give your life to buying something dirt cheap and then storing it somewhere and then waiting for its value to go up and then selling it on for a ridiculously high amount of money, that's just greed. It's just greed. But in today's society, you have to define greed. I can't just say greed kills, end wars. Because people go, oh, you're a fucking communist. Well, that's not true. I'm not a communist. I've never been a communist. My belief system, I'm not an ist or an ism, really. I'm a human being having a human experience. And that experience accepts the duality that we have in life. The thing is, it's like one side is very dark and one side is very light. And the trouble with both is the light is blinding if you go too far, and the darkness is stifling if you go too far. But a lot of my friends who are having a human experience are standing in the darkness saying, come on, everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing it. Well, I won't do it. I won't be greedy. Somebody has decided they wanted to take something that belonged to me recently, and it was a very, very sneaky way of doing it. You know, they got it. They convinced me that this was what it wasn't, and it's okay, I'm going to honor our agreements and all that stuff. But then they didn't, and ultimately they took something that was mine, and instead of contesting it, I sat with it for a while. At first I contested it when I found out, but then I sat with it for a while and I was like, wow, that's gonna eat you. That greed, that extortion, that deception, that corruption, it's in you. It's in all of us. We just don't answer it. Hi, Chad. How you doing, mate? Just give you a little wave there. You waved at Chadillac. Like a Cadillac. Yeah. Okie doke. Didn't want to get on a political bent. Oh, there's a lizard over there. Saw a baby one yesterday. It was no bigger than my small finger thumbnail. It was a little tiny lizard, fully formed, but he was sat on top of a fabric hose pipe, and when I turned the hose on, not to wet the reptile, but when I turned the hose on and it expanded, it started doing push-ups. There's a butterfly, birds flying, fruit on the trees. Come on. Life's too short to take on so much greed that you're harming others. Try not to harm each other. Just try. Even if you're saying things that are vague and insignificant, it's time to raise your voice, because you know deep inside you that when you do something wrong, you know it, you feel it, you're just like, oh, I didn't feel good, oh well, now I've got a pocket full of cash. That's not it. That's not life. That's not it. Promise. Life is so much more than that. I'm helping a friend right now sell an old car, and I'm not of the mind to lie to people. It's an old car. It's a good old car. It keeps going. And if you want it, you can buy it, and it's going to cost these amount of dollars. But I'm helping my friend sell it, and she said, oh yeah, I'll give you some money for selling it for me. I'm not doing it for money. I'm doing it because she needs the money, because she's staring down the barrel of a gun, because she got mortgaged and remortgaged and remortgaged. She's now swimming in, oh my gosh, there's a rabbit. She's swimming under a sea of debt. Well, I don't have a sea of debt. I don't have very much, but I don't require very much to appreciate that rabbit staring at me right now. I wonder if I could flip the camera around. It's a bit messy. But over there, in the shadows, there he is. Look at that. Hello, Mr. Rabbit. You can hear the crows cawing in the background. A crow won't take a rabbit until it's dead. But there are coyotes around here, and they'll take a rabbit. Anyway, the true nature of our being is being. Beautiful morning. Oh well, breakfast time. My stomach is again telling me time for breakfast. Live, love, life. There's only one way forward. Don't struggle too much. There you go. Love you. Bye.